The global security architecture of 2026 operates in a highly volatile state. We are navigating an era defined by rapid technological proliferation and the systematic collapse of bilateral arms control agreements. As of early 2026, 9 nuclear-armed states possess approximately 12,241 nuclear warheads, but the United States and the Russian Federation maintain a massive strategic duopoly. Together, these two nations account for 87% of the entire global stockpile. Within that duopoly, the Russian Federation holds the top position. Moscow controls approximately 5,459 total warheads, confirming its status as the world's largest nuclear arsenal. Historically, the absolute total number of warheads has declined since the Cold War, but that top-line decline is deceptive. While Washington and Moscow dismantle retired, obsolete systems, the number of active warheads assigned to operational military forces is simultaneously expanding and modernizing. On February 5, 2026, the new Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty, or New START, formally expired. This marked the end of over 5 decades of verifiable, legally binding arms control between the world's two largest nuclear powers. With the treaty's demise, strict legal constraints vanished overnight. Neither nation is legally restricted to the previous ceilings of 1,550 deployed warheads, or 800 launchers. Diplomatic efforts to preserve these limits failed in the months leading up to the expiration. U.S. President Donald Trump dismissed a proposed temporary freeze on warhead counts, opting instead to hold out for a broader agreement that would include China. In response, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov confirmed that any temporary moratorium Moscow places on its warhead limits would depend strictly on U.S. reciprocation. Without a formal agreement, that reciprocity collapsed. The expiration of the treaty immediately terminated the mutual verification regime. Without on-site inspections, intelligence agencies must rely entirely on satellite reconnaissance, effectively blinding them to the daily operational readiness of adversary forces. This is a technical schematic of a Russian RS-28 Yars intercontinental ballistic missile. Under the old treaty, Russia had to artificially download these missiles, leaving payload bays empty to stay under the legal cap. The expiration of New START authorizes a new severe threat known as upload capacity. Russia can now rapidly and legally upload its massive stockpile of reserve warheads into these empty slots. Executing this upload across their MIRV-capable delivery systems could increase Russia's deployed strategic arsenal by up to 60%. The absolute lack of physical verification, combined with the existence of this massive upload capacity, forces military planners into worst-case scenario calculations. Operating in the dark violently accelerates the quantitative arms race. The institutional backbone of this unconstrained arsenal is the Russian strategic triad. As of 2026, this consists of approximately 592 deployed delivery vehicles designed to strike at intercontinental ranges. The land-based leg of the triad has successfully transitioned from aging Soviet systems to the RS-28 Yars. By deploying these missiles on massive road-mobile launchers, the strategic rocket forces highly complicate adversary targeting by constantly shifting locations across the Russian interior. The sea-based leg ensures a guaranteed second strike capability. The Russian Navy has transitioned to the advanced Borei-class submarines, patrolling deep beneath the oceans. These submarines are armed with the Bulava submarine-launched ballistic missile. The Bulava utilizes solid-fueled propulsion, which burns much faster than older liquid fuel. This shorter boost phase drastically reduces the missile's infrared heat signature during launch, complicating detection by space-based early warning satellites. Finally, the aviation leg relies heavily on the Tu-160 and Tu-95MS strategic bombers. Instead of flying directly over enemy territory, these aircraft launch long-range nuclear cruise missiles from deep within friendly or highly defended airspace. While this modernized triad guarantees intercontinental annihilation in a global conflict, it represents only the highest, least likely rung of Russia's escalation ladder. Moscow's primary asymmetric advantage over NATO lies further down that escalation ladder, in a vast and entirely unregulated non-strategic or tactical nuclear arsenal, estimated to hold between 1,477 and 2,000 warheads. This creates a severe strategic hazard known as the discrimination problem. Nearly all of Russia's tactical delivery vehicles are purposefully designed to fire both conventional high explosives and tactical nuclear payloads. The premier example of this ambiguity is the 9K-720 Iskander-M short-range ballistic missile system. Because it is dual-capable, early warning radars cannot definitively determine if an incoming Iskander is carrying a conventional warhead or a tactical nuclear device until the moment of detonation. This line chart tracks the recent, staggering defense industrial surge in Russia. Driven by wartime mobilization, annual production of the Iskander system skyrocketed from roughly 72 pre-war units to an estimated 600 units by 2026. Moscow has leveraged these surplus systems to execute a strategic forward deployment into the Republic of Belarus, facilitated by Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko.
As part of this integrated regional posture, the Belarusian military also modified a fleet of Su-25 ground attack aircraft to carry Russian nuclear gravity bombs. Stationing these tactical weapons and mobile launchers directly on the Belarusian border, particularly near the vulnerable Suwalki Gap, drastically reduces missile flight times. This severely compresses the early warning and decision-making windows available to NATO commanders. This massive surge in tactical production and the deliberate ambiguity of dual-capable missiles serve a specific purpose. They blur the line between conventional theater warfare and nuclear escalation, effectively weaponizing uncertainty on the battlefield. Beyond traditional missiles and tactical forces, Russia has aggressively invested in novel, physics-defying delivery systems. The strategic catalyst driving this specific development is the highly ambitious U.S. Golden Dome initiative. The Golden Dome aims to construct an impenetrable, multi-layered missile shield over the American homeland. To achieve this, it relies on thousands of space-based interceptors and sensors in low Earth orbit to destroy incoming threats before they exit the atmosphere. The financial scale of this architecture is astronomical. Defense analysts estimate the total lifecycle costs for the Golden Dome could reach up to $2.4 trillion. Rather than bankrupting the state by trying to symmetrically match the United States in space, Russian military planners adopted an asymmetric logic. They are designing weapons that bypass exoatmospheric interception entirely. One solution is the 9M730 Borei-class. Powered by an onboard miniature nuclear reactor, it is a cruise missile capable of limitless atmospheric loitering. It can fly low to the ground for days, outflanking traditional northern-facing radar nets to strike from unexpected vectors. Another is the Poseidon UUV, or Unmanned Underwater Vehicle. This massive, autonomous, nuclear-powered drone travels silently along the ocean floor. It is designed to circumvent aerospace defenses entirely and detonate near coastlines, triggering devastating radioactive tsunamis. By operating exclusively in the lower atmosphere and the deep ocean, these exotic systems are designed to guarantee the absolute lethality of Russia's second strike deterrent. If successful, they render trillion-dollar U.S. space defenses functionally irrelevant. Sustaining a vast nuclear modernization program while simultaneously fighting a high-intensity conventional war requires immense capital. By 2025, this financial burden was dangerously overheating the Russian economy. The federal budget dedicated to the military reached 16 trillion rubles, forcing the Kremlin to draft restrictive defense cuts for the 2026 fiscal year just to keep the state financially viable. But an external geopolitical shock saved the Russian budget. In early 2026, the United States and Israel launched Operation Epic Fury, a massive, coordinated military campaign targeting the Islamic Republic of Iran. This map and rising graph track the economic chain reaction. As the conflict directly threatened the Strait of Hormuz, a vital maritime choke point, it triggered a massive and sustained spike in global energy prices. As a premier energy exporter, Moscow reaped an immediate petrodollar windfall. This sudden influx of revenue provided an unexpected financial lifeline, allowing the Kremlin to fully fund its expensive strategic nuclear programs without enacting politically crippling domestic tax hikes. These modernized physical weapons, funded by global economic instability, are now governed by a deeply concerning shift in declaratory policy.
In late 2024, President Vladimir Putin officially updated Russia's Basic Principles of State Policy on Nuclear Deterrence. This new doctrine formally lowers the threshold for the employment of nuclear weapons. It legally codifies Moscow's escalate to de-escalate strategy, asserting that the limited first use of a nuclear weapon can paralyze an adversary and force them to cease hostilities. The update introduces a joint attack provision. It explicitly states that if a non-nuclear country attacks Russia and that country is supported by a nuclear-armed NATO power, Moscow will treat it as a joint attack, nullifying previous assurances not to use nuclear weapons against non-nuclear states. The doctrine also shifts the specific triggers for retaliation. Russian nuclear use is no longer restricted to scenarios where the very existence of the state is threatened. It is now legally permitted in response to conventional aerospace attacks or actions that pose a critical threat to state sovereignty. Finally, the text legally extends the Russian nuclear umbrella over Belarus. It solidifies an expanding anti-Western trilateral axis that now openly integrates North Korean manpower and munitions with Russian strategic depth. The 2026 strategic landscape presents a uniquely perilous reality. We are witnessing the dangerous convergence of absolute treaty opacity, extreme technological asymmetry, and a doctrinal framework that actively weaponizes the threat of deliberate nuclear escalation.